All right, just want to again say thank you everyone for being here. This is actually a new initiative that we are doing this year. So very appreciative of you being here to support the Pomerantz Career Center by attending this panel. And of course, want to thank our wonderful panelists for taking time out of your busy schedules to participate and share your very valuable perspectives with our Iowa campus community. My name is Abby Case. I use she, her pronouns. I'm a career coach here at the PCC, and I also work with our employer outreach team. Just want to talk about some logistics. I'll have the panelists introduce themselves here in a second. As I mentioned, we are recording this session, so if you have to leave early, or if you know people who might be interested in this and you want to send this video to them when we're done, we will have it available on our website very soon. We do have a few set questions that I will ask of all of the panelists, and then we'll save some time at the end for any audience questions. So again, participants won't be able to unmute themselves, but we do have a Q&A feature that you can put questions in, and feel free to put that in there as we go if you don't want to forget your questions, or you can just save it to the end because that's when we'll ask them of the panelists. So with that all said, we'll go ahead and get started. As I mentioned, I'll have the panelists introduce themselves and start with a question one. But before we dive into that, if you would just briefly go around. So we'll start with Cindy, and then Lexi, then Andrew, then Caroline, then Michael. If you'll just say your full name and what you're currently doing, and yeah, where you're coming to us from, where you work. So starting with Cindy.
Thank you, Abby. I am Cindy Opitz, and I am Director of Research Collections at the University of Iowa Museum of Natural History and Old Capitol Museum.
Thank you. Lexi.
Hi, everyone. My name is Lexi Matthews. I live in Marion, just about 45 minutes away, and I own a small business, a coffee shop, but I'm also the director for the Marion Arts Festival.
Andrew. Or Andy.
My name is Andrew Abrez. I am we don't have titles at Upstaging, but my role encompasses recruiting, community outreach, dispelling illusions about the entertainment industry, sort of the reverse wizard, if you catch my look. And I was the deli manager at the New Pioneer Co-op in Iowa City, basically all of the 1990s.
Thank you. Caroline?
Hi, I'm Caroline Garski. I'm currently in the Chicago Loop right now, and I'm at the Gene Siskel Film Center in Chicago.
All right, and then Michael.
Hi, I'm Michael Mackey. I'm based just outside of Kansas City. I'm a personal branding expert.
Excellent. All right. Thank you, everyone. Okay. So actually just going to go in that same exact order for the first question, and then we'll mix it up for the next few. But if you could share your educational background and how it contributed to your current career path. So again, we'll start with Cindy.
So my educational background has very little to do with my current career path. I am one of those people who is under that category or equivalent experience. I have an MFA in literary translation. I studied German and Soviet studies as an undergraduate. As I advise all people, though, who say that they're going to be studying or majoring in the humanities, then I say you will have to major in adaptability and take whatever opportunities come your way, because there are no clear paths. For example, if you decide you're going to study medicine, then you're probably going to become a doctor. But those humanities roles are a little less direct in their end goal paths. So I have gone back and gotten an online certificate in museum studies, but I've been working at the museum for nearly 27 years and started with no museum experience.
All right, thanks for sharing. Lexi.
Yeah, so I graduated from the University of Iowa in 2015, and I got a degree in journalism, and then I had certificates in fundraising and philanthropy and entrepreneurial management. Similar to what Cindy said, I kind of cobbled together my career because I wanted to work in the music industry and the entertainment industry, but Iowa didn't necessarily have a program specifically for that. So I also focused on organizations outside of school, which were Scope Productions and on-campus music production group. And then I worked very heavily in Mission Creek in the community and at the Englert. So that's where I came from in my background.
Yeah, thank you.
Well,
Those are some great ways to get involved, by the way, any students that are on right now. Yeah, so we'll go to Andrew next, then Caroline, then Michael.
cool. Educationally, I took some community college courses early on right after high school, and initially had moved to Iowa City to take courses at Kirkwood. But my skill as a drummer very quickly took over. School fell by the wayside, and I became a touring musician, which eventually led to somebody asking me to help run a show. So over the last 25 years, my education has been, hey, we're putting on a show, let's figure it out. And that goes back to, but I will say that if I had to point at an education that I wish I would have had, it's multiple hats. It's computer networking, the adaptability that was mentioned earlier is so important, because we as humans can make perfect plans, but once you introduce them to the humans for fulfillment, things can generally go awry very quickly. So organizational classes would have been amazing if I had been able to stay through school, but too many bands needed drummers in the 90s.
Yeah, so I graduated from the University of Iowa in 2018. I studied history and political science and took some Russian language courses as well towards the end. And I am now a digital communications manager, and basically my graphic design and things like that were all like self-taught on the job. But history, you know, really overlaps with everything. But like everyone's kind of said, it's connecting those things and being organized. Like history's making arguments, and that's how you make a project happen and make get your supporting things ducks in a row. But if you guys are, I'm sure, familiar with film scene in Iowa City, the Gene Siskel Film Center is a kind of a peer of that, and we actually have a couple former film scene folks on the staff here in Chicago. So I was a member there, and that just going to movies, loving film, and applying that has been really helpful. But the humanities was great in the fact that there's no like limit to what you can do with that, and you can kind of take it wherever you want to go. So it's great.
I got my degree in broadcasting and my minors in French and in theater, which I guess I was always assuming that I would be destined to work on a television sitcom in Quebec, but that did not work out. I knew growing up that I always wanted to be in TV, on TV, or watching TV. So I have parlayed my degree into that, and I have worked at multiple TV stations in Des Moines, Orlando, Kansas, here in Kansas City, and yeah. So it's just been a great trajectory since I got into TV.
Great. Thank you, everyone. So recognizing that you're not all coming from the exact same industry, kind of arts, media, entertainment broadly, but curious about your specific experiences. What are some of the most significant trends currently shaping your industry? And this time, if we can start with Caroline.
Yeah, so in the film industry, in the film exhibition industry specifically, we're an art house movie theater open 7 days a week, but for a big chunk of time there, all of the movie theaters shut down. And I was lucky enough to start here the week before we reopened post-COVID, which was crazy. It was exciting though, because it wasn't like, oh, here's how we've done everything we're 52 years old. So here's how it's always been done. It was really, we're remaking and responding to everything that's changed since in our industry, and dealing with writer's strike and other things like that in the fall. You know, we almost didn't, like, new releases that were going to play at the end of last year, like it was all question marks. So kind of responding to the larger things within the film industry and the post-COVID cinema landscape is kind of what we're focusing on. We've just rebuilt our like membership levels to be past like pre-COVID numbers. So the audiences are coming back, but there's definitely still things where it's no matter what you program, no matter what's on your screens or what you're doing, it still just takes a lot of time. So responding to those challenges and also building up, like you can't wait for a movie that you're going to secure the film that everyone's talking about that season, but like you have to have other things on the table and bring other, like there's more than just the films. So yeah, we're just still kind of in the rebuilding audiences phases, but it's improved a lot. So here's to the movies.
All right, we'll go to Cindy and then Lexi after that.
So the question was about latest trends in the industry, is that right?
Yes, correct.
All right. So in the museum field, unfortunately, in the past, internships have not necessarily been paid on a very widespread scale. But that's something that a lot of folks in the museum industry are trying to change, to be able to offer paid internships and not just expect that students or recently graduated interns work for free or just for the experience. So there's one trend that I think is a move in the right direction. Another is I see a lot of job descriptions for job openings that come across my desktop from various listservs in the museum field. And it's looking more and more like a master's degree is one of the more desired characteristics. And so the Museum Studies certificate, for example, here at the University of Iowa, while we can argue that it is the same as the curriculum at Western Illinois' graduate certificate in museum studies just across the river, that people might be excluded from searches if they don't have that master's degree. So my advice to people who are getting museum studies certificates is to consider going on to master's degree, not necessarily in museum studies, but in a content field like anthropology or Native American studies, or one of the zoology fields like entomology, mammalogy, etc.
So previous to moving back to Iowa and opening a coffee shop, taking on the Marian Arts Festival director role, I worked on the touring side in the music industry. And something that I noticed there, and I have seen increasing just with, social media platforms like TikTok, are the necessity for brand partnerships for artists. So I think artists, particularly music artists, having very multifaceted careers is something that I see as a more large scale trend. And then on the fine arts side for the Marian Arts Festival, which is just a small 1-day 50 artist festival in Uptown Marion, something that I think is trending is just having more hands-on community building, kind of like impactful type of events they might be smaller and you might hit less people, but when you have the ability to build community and keep people coming year after year because it's more of a micro level event, I think being able to focus on the smaller side of things and keep it impactful rather than having a giant event where you're trying to appeal to everyone is something that I see on the event side of the industry.
All right, we'll go to Michael next and then wrap up with Andrew.
I would be remiss if I didn't talk about the power of personal branding. I have found over the last 3 years that basically making yourself a brand has become a quintessential, almost mandatory thing. And I liken it to that old philosophical adage where if you do all these really great, amazing things, it's like if a tree falls in the woods and no one hears it, does it make a sound? Well, guess what? If you do all these really great, amazing things and no one knows about them, does anyone care? Did you actually do them? So what I do is I find really mindful, strategic ways to shamelessly, blatantly promote someone without anyone knowing they're being shamelessly, blatantly promoted. But it doesn't mean that I have to do it. The average Joe can also find really, really unique and interesting ways to put themselves out there and get themselves noticed in a sea of other candidates or job interview people who are looking for jobs. So having a personal brand is almost mandatory these days.
Cool. So coming out of the pandemic, the touring production industry lost a lot of people. Traditionally, the entry into this career path has been a difficult one. There's really been no road signs showing anyone how to get this job. And a lot of it was nepotism or right place, right time. And a lot of people that were very experienced at what we do found something else to do, because we kind of got hit really the hardest at the beginning of the pandemic. And it took us a while to get the kind of assistance that other people got right away, due to the fact that a large majority of the people in our industry work as freelancers or independent contractors. So things got very difficult from that. And then coming out of the pandemic, a lot of those people didn't come back. So the biggest trend we're seeing right now is companies like ours are employing people like myself to go out and actually build sustainable pipelines that include things like diversity, equity, the inclusion that a lot of people are looking to see currently in our world moving forward, in what was traditionally an older white male dominated industry is becoming much more of a diverse and inclusive environment, because we focus on the fact that it's about getting the job done. There's no specific really anything other than the physical ability to do this job and a dedication to do a great job that it takes to do what we do. So that's been one of the biggest changes. It's not just a bunch of old white guys anymore. We've got a bunch of diversity putting up the shows, and we're getting a lot of great feedback from our artists about it too. So.
Yeah, thank you everyone for those thoughts. Kind of in a similar vein, some of you talked about some exciting trends going on, some difficult trends. What is the biggest challenge, or maybe one of the biggest challenges, of working in an arts, media, and entertainment role? And how can aspiring professionals prepare to address this challenge? This time we'll start with Lexi and then move to Michael after that.
So I think one of the biggest challenges working in the arts, from my experience, especially starting out on the venue side and then moving to tour booking, is that it's very much a career of passion. You get into it because you love music, love the arts, and you want to work with artists. But you work a lot of nights and weekends. Your friends get corporate jobs, and you're working. You don't get paid very much. So it's definitely hard to keep that passion there as you move into the industry more. So you have to find things that you enjoy outside of the passion. Like, do you actually really like data entry or spreadsheets or settling shows for artists? So that's something you have to focus on. And another way to address that challenge is just make sure that where you work, you meet people that you enjoy working with, and you learn how to have a backbone.
Well, when it comes to setting yourself apart, I've learned that you literally need to put your best face forward. And I say that both figuratively and literally, because in the world of personal branding, that's sort of what sets you apart. And if you're not putting your best, authentic, genuine self out there all day, every day, anyone who's scrolling through LinkedIn or Facebook or looking through your social media feeds will be able to see that disingenuous, you know what I'm saying. They'll be able to see that straight away. And it all comes down to sort of the content that you're posting and being particularly aware that that stuff is out there for eternity. And anybody who's in HR or a recruiter or down the road are going to look back at that stuff with a critical eye. And as you're trying desperately to make a name for yourself and get yourself out there, as right after graduation, you kind of have to have something that differentiates yourself, something that sets yourself apart. And it better be the best version of you that you can possibly put out there onto social media or onto LinkedIn or onto what if you have a blog or whatever. Just something so that people can find you and get a feel for who you are and what you bring to the table, other than just a resume.
Go to Caroline, and then Andrew, and then Cindy.
Yeah, so I think one challenge, number one, being in a big place like Chicago and having a lot to choose from, that's the challenge. There's a lot out there. There's so much to do. There's endless things on the calendar, and how do you stand out and respond to the public being your audience, and the public whose attention span is short, who has a lot to look at, overloaded, and how do you set yourself apart? And kind of something that Lexi spoke to earlier is kind of like building those communities and your audience groups and those relationships within your audiences, because then you're not just one thing on the menu. Folks have a relationship with you and they trust what you've done in the past, and it's, you know, easier to sell one patron 5 tickets than get 5 new patrons. So just how are we responding to our public? I mean, we're not going to be for everyone. I mean, we're never going to be an AMC who's we're never going to have 12 screens, or maybe we will someday, but how do we respond to our audience that we know and make them trust us and what we do? So just being adapt to that, because the public, their appetites and everything changes all the time. So yeah, just fast responding to that and keeping that in mind.
So challenges, yeah, that's what we're talking about currently. Challenges in our industry are tough, and especially for people looking to break into it, and also for ourselves as a company. Not a lot of people are exposed to high-end lighting technology really at any point in their existence. And so it's a very, very small number of people that have any experience whatsoever in doing what we do that are out there. And then a very even smaller group of people that pursue that with a passion. My job is to find them. So really our big challenge is, how do we get more education out there for people? But is it education? Is it just we need to stage a big show so the kids see something fantastic and go, what is that? Maybe that's what it is. But, you know, how do we engage people with a technology that's very, very hard to come by, and then get them to, you know, a lot of people that get into doing what we do or fall in love with what we do, fall in love with it from a creative or design aspect. And that's amazing. Like, I want these people to go on and have those dreams, but what we do is the physical aspect of putting up a show. So we're just as much construction workers as we are networking people, as we are, you know, passionate about the music. You have to be somewhat of an artist if you're going to operate the board, because say, you know, we do lighting for the band that used to be the Grateful Dead. They're called Dead and Company now. Their front of house lighting person actually has to busk every one of their shows. You can't build a file that you just hit play on to make their show happen, because they never play the same set ever. So their lighting designer and their lighting operator has to do a different show every night based on just a book of pre-programmed skills. So there are just so many skills that go into doing what we do. It's impossible to rapid skill anybody. So really, we just have to find people with heart and maybe a little bit of those skills. And it's difficult, but you know what? We're excited to see how far we can take it moving forward. Maybe with even some kids from Iowa.
Is it my turn? Oh, okay, sorry. I think the biggest challenge facing people trying to get into the museum field is to just getting that initial real life grown-up job. Often I advise students or recent graduates to get a job to pay the bills while they're working on getting their desired career job in the museum field. And by gaining experience during that time also, maybe by volunteering with a museum or pursuing internships and that kind of thing. Once you're in, it seems. And there are so many different kinds of jobs within museums that might be another challenge, is how do you choose whether you want to go into exhibitions or collections, which is my area, or administration or education or visitor services, and how do you focus the studies and the projects that you take on, and the how do you narrow down and specialize in an area when the field is so wide open?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, everyone. So on the flip side of that, what is the most exciting or important part of what you do? So basically, what's keeping you working in an arts, media, and entertainment profession? And this time we'll start off with Andrew.
I didn't have a choice. Ultimately, I fell in love at 7 on my dad's shoulders at a Casey and the Sunshine Band concert. At the height of their powers, I was there at 7 and fell in love with it. And whatever that was, I had to have it. So I'm probably going to get off topic if you let me. But so reiterate the question to me one more time.
Yeah, the most exciting or important part of what you do, what keeps you working in this profession?
I mean, it's the show. I mean, we get to be there. We're part of, no matter what part of our company you work in. I was in the back testing cables right before this just to help out because we're busy. But those cables, I know where they're going. They're going to be on Mariah Carey's, holiday tour. So every time Mariah Carey goes out and sings Merry Christmas Baby or whatever the hit is, I know that the cables I tested are making sure her show runs great. So the cool part is everything we do is a small facet of something that goes into a much bigger show. On average, there's a great, I like to remind all of our people here that there's a great statistic that is for every single person you see on a stage, especially on a major show, there are on average about 70 people behind the scenes that had to do something as part of their role to affect that being a successful performance and that person being out on stage. So the coolest part about what we do is we're there when the lights go down and we're the ones that push the buttons to make them come up, and we get to hear the crowd go, and there's an energy that exists in those moments that you can't get anywhere else. Ultimately, I think there's a joke that I'll close my little point here with, but it's at a carnival scene and there's a guy that has to shovel all the elephant manure. And one day someone asks him and says, why do you keep shoveling all the elephant manure? You could be doing anything else. And the guy looks at him disgusted and says, what? And give up show business? It's in our blood for some people. So I was just lucky enough to find a way to pay the bills doing it.
Excellent point and joke. We will go to Caroline and then Michael.
Yeah. So like everyone on this panel, I work with a team of other people who are also very passionate about what we're doing and why we're doing it. And that why is like the passion around us and me, like I feel every day. And it's like very exciting. And I don't know, like my peers elsewhere don't necessarily have that. And I don't think that's a given. So that's like really special to me. But the why we do what we do is because like who else in Chicago is going to play these movies that we're playing? We do like a series annually in January that's called Settle In, and it's when we show movies that are at least 5 hours long. So on a Saturday, like I have spent many Saturdays watching like the Soviet adaptation of War and Peace from 11 a.m. to like 7 p.m. And like I brought 5 friends and they like loved it. So it's those kind of experiences that like we put on and enjoying it as an audience member as well. I'll be here like 2 weeks straight because I'm coming to movies on Saturday and Sunday too. And the really exciting part about that too is being in the exciting part about experiencing it as an audience member is like being with who we're responding to. And like, that's very energizing to me. And one other trend that we've seen since reopening after the pandemic is the young people coming to these really obscure old foreign films. And some of that has to do with Letterboxd and the rise of some of those kind of things. But it's really exciting to see all the faces, getting to see these things on the big screen, which is always different than seeing it at home. So
I tell people all the time that I'm a personal branding expert, but I've actually branded myself as an accidental entertainment reporter because I got into interviewing celebrities about 25 years ago, and that has become my sort of ipso facto tagline. My tagline is, you name the celebrity and I've probably interviewed them twice. So I joke that me branding myself as an accidental entertainment reporter has gotten me tons of interviews. In fact, literally, I went from interviewing the entire cast of some HBO's Somebody Somewhere to this particular podcast. So it's really been an interesting journey. And again, I totally fell into it. And then along the way, kept branding myself as the go-to person for when when celebrities come into Kansas City, that I should be top of mind to interview them. And to date, I've interviewed probably 10 Academy Award winners, and it's become my other claim to fame in addition to me being a personal branding expert. So the power in personal branding, it does work.
I've heard you also do a fun radio show from time to time, right? In Kansas City?
Yeah, I'm on a talk radio show, and it's sort of propelled me into the zeitgeist. It's amazing the amount of people who listen to that show, and so it's always fun when people recognize me oddly by my voice. It must be very distinctive. I don't know. So yeah, I like to say I'm sort of a media darling.
All right, we'll go to Cindy and then wrap up with Lexi.
Yeah, I absolutely love museums. And I'm also, like Carolyn said, I'm surrounded by people who also love what they do. In fact, my director and I have an argument every week about, well, no, my job is better. No, I have the best job on campus. No, I do. I love being part of the educational mission of museums, and in particular in my area of specialty in collections. I love just taking care of all those things behind the scenes, making things available to researchers. I get excited about the fact that, people find our collections and use them in their research all around the planet, even just the data that's associated with them without ever touching or seeing a physical specimen. There's just so much research that goes on, and it's great to know that I'm contributing to that, and that's exciting.
So I think the most exciting part of what I get to do currently as the director for the Marion Arts Festival is I'm a conduit for the artists and for art. And what I mean by that is I wrote a grant last year through the Economic Development Authority where we had these create and explore spaces, and we brought in wheel throwing and graffiti and printmaking, and we were able to provide that to the community to learn a new skill and maybe walk away with something that they wanted to take on as a medium. And then additionally, with the artists, working with fine artists from all over the country and sometimes around the world, you get to give them the space to showcase their art and sell it to people and make new connections in the community and hopefully make a living off of it. Similarly, in the music industry, that was one of my favorite parts, is seeing a tour come together or a project come together where an artist gets to express themselves, and you might be like a business brain or not an artist, but you understand the realm that the artist is working in, and you can bring it to life on like a practical level, because sometimes artists can be a little I don't know what the word is, but out there with their ideas. So you bring it down to like reality and help logistically make it happen. And that's just really exciting to me.
All right, the next question is, what are some key skills, qualities, and/or experiences that students could work toward to help them be successful in arts, media, and entertainment industries? We'll start with Michael and go to Andrew from there.
Ooh, it's like that old improv statement, never say no to anything, always say yes. And I'm a firm believer in yes and, because we all know that saying no gets you nowhere. No also shuts down the conversation. So my word of advice is do all the things. I don't care what it is. Say yes to everything. If you get an invite to something, I would go to the opening of an envelope. If someone invites me, I'm there. So what I'm saying is, if someone goes out of their way to invite you to something, go and have the best time or the worst time. I don't care. Just go, make an appearance, because you never know who you're going to bump into, who you're going to meet. And I've discovered that 20-something teens and 20-somethings are sort of stilted, and I don't want to pigeonhole everybody in that, but they're sort of stilted when it comes to just actual conversations because they're always on their phones. So put yourself out there, get out there, be engaging, and again, put your best face forward, full stop.
Sound advice. So yeah, and I sort of, if I was giving people advice or how to, what to do to develop, I hope that's the question. Am I close to what the question is, Abby? Yeah. Okay. So it really is about doing things. I can't stress enough. Get out of your head, get out of your screen. Don't overthink the things. Go and take the first step. You don't know how many bugs are under that rock until you turn it over. But until you turn it over, it's just a serene little clean rock. So the thing is, I got into this whole world wanting to be the drummer in the band, and I played a lot of big shows with famous people, and it was real cool. But it was all the soft skills and things that I learned along the way being a performer that made me perfect when it said, hey, we're going to throw a concert and somebody's got to figure out how it's all going to work. I went, oh, I know that intrinsically. If I'm going to give anybody any kind of advice, it's just don't overthink it. Get out and start. Put one foot in front of the other, because you're going to learn so much about yourself. And if a thing is for you, you know how many dreamers I get here, they're like, oh, I want to go on tour with the bands. And I'm like, yeah, okay, great. It's right this way. But you also have to do 16 hours of construction every day on 3 hours of sleep. And you get pizza every night for dinner. I hope you like pizza. You're going to not like pizza after a month or so. So it's that kind of a thing. I want to encourage people to get out of their heads and actually just get out and do it. Get out and try something. It's through doing that you will learn so much more about yourself than any form of study, any form of reading, anything. Please do the study, do the reading. I mean, don't go in completely blind, but you can if you want to. But do a thing. Again, if you want to be a writer, start writing. If you want to be a musician, pick up an instrument. Sing a song, whatever it is. Do the thing.
If any students on here heard, don't read for your coursework, that was not the point. So please do continue to read.
Oh, yeah. Please read everything voraciously. I just annoyed my teachers back in school because being one of the original ADHD kids, I would memorize the entire book and then completely zone out during class. But if they asked a question, I knew the answer, which was really annoying for the teachers because I was not paying attention. So anyway, sorry, I'm not a good example.
No, I appreciate the advice. All right, we'll go to Cindy next.
Yeah, I would agree 100% with what Andrew said about being open to opportunities and taking opportunities, looking for opportunities to gain experience, even if it's just a job shadow for a day, or a student job or an internship or a class project. Try it out, try it on, see if you like it, see what you like. And, as related to the museum field, as I mentioned, there are so many different areas in a museum. So try things and figure out what it is that will make you happy in a museum setting, if museums are your passion.
All right, then we'll go to Lexi next and wrap up with Caroline for this question.
I pretty much have the same notes as everybody else. I think that trying out as many avenues as possible is always the best way to go when it comes to the arts. There's so many things that you maybe think you want to do one thing, but there's something that's parallel to that kind of takes you in a different path or even adjacent to it, where I look a lot at like careers that are adjacent to, the music industry. Like take Taylor Swift, for example. Her security team takes 1 million people to coordinate. So like, can you be in the arts but be adjacent to it? And I think part of trying things out is you're not going to like everything and you're not going to like everyone. So just having some grit there and know that it's not forever. If you hate it, you can go in a different direction. And something that I did a lot when I was starting out is I had 4 jobs at a time. The job to pay the bills, or 4 jobs that don't pay very much, but you cobble it together to make it all work. So find the pieces that you enjoy and just figure out how to hone in on them.
Yeah, I'll stick on the openness metaphor with the movie metaphor. Sorry, but I always say I never regret seeing a movie, and it's like because even if I hate it, I know more about what I hate, and that gets me closer to what I like. So applying that towards saying yes to things, and you can always opt out, but you learn something about yourself. Um, and you know also just don't let that like I'm a bit of a completist, like a perfectionist. Like I'm like, well, I need to know everything if I'm going to do XYZ. So I remember when I started this job, I was like, do I need to go back? Let me learn about the silent era. Let me like start from the beginning, like do everything. But it's like use what you have and then go, but don't let that be a barrier to trying something, because you don't need to have the whole knowledge of the history of something to get going. So
Thanks, everyone. So this will be the last official question that I have for you all, then we'll open it up for the audience. So knowing that students are in a similar position to where you might have been when you first embarked on your careers, what's one piece of advice you can share with them that you wish someone would have told you at that age? And we'll start with Cindy and go to Lexi from there.
Oh gosh, all of the above. Yeah, I, as I said, I fell into this particular career by accident, but it's become a lifelong passion now, and I don't want to ever leave my position here until I retire, of course, eventually. Um, I guess one piece of advice that I wish that I had on hand to give myself when I was younger was nothing lasts forever. You might feel pressured to figure out what college you're going to go to and what you're going to major in and then what job you're going to have. But life will throw all kinds of things at you, and you do need to be able to adapt to those, especially as you learn more about yourself. So I get this job. Maybe I don't like it. Maybe it's not exactly where I want to be. I don't have to do it forever. I can find something else. I can start to move in a different direction. So nothing lasts forever in a good way, I think, is some advice that I'd like to pass on.
It's funny that you say that because I wrote down enjoy the process. I think it's easy to get wrapped up in all the stuff that you're doing, or if you do have multiple jobs or you hate the job that you're in, just remember that, the people that you work with or the things that you're doing there's something to be enjoyed in that always. And don't forget to be kind to people. You never know when you're in this industry, especially who you're going to come across somewhere down the line, and you don't want to burn bridges and be a hothead. Or if you do get established and think you're doing really well, you never know when something like a COVID's going to happen, or you're going to lose your job, because it's a pretty cutthroat industry, or can be in certain areas. And you just want to make sure that you're maintaining relationships and being a good person and leaving things better than you found them.
Absolutely. We will go on to Andrew, then Caroline, then wrap up with Michael.
Cool. Well, I was never able to shake the whole golden rule idea of, treat people and treat others as you want to be treated. And if you extrapolate that into what we do as a business in entertainment, there's a saying that you're only as good as your last show. And so, in that sense, you want to show up with your best every day, and showing up is another thing. Especially, I want to put this out there for kids and maybe, anybody that might be dealing with anxiety issues or, anything along those lines. Show up. Get, fight it, show up, because you know what, somebody else isn't, and that's opportunity. Showing up for things and volunteering for things. I bet Lexi's organizations that she's involved with could use some volunteers, and you can put that volunteering on your resume. If you can't get your foot in the door anywhere else, I bet that's a way you could get some experience that would pique my interest, because as the guy that has to look at every resume that comes through the door here, I'm always looking for soft skills. I'm looking for, did you get involved? Like, where is your heart at? Can I see it on this paper? Because I'll tell you, almost every resume I see looks almost exactly the same. And so I'm looking for the weirdness. I'm looking for the soft skills. I'm looking for those volunteers. What did you do when you didn't have to? That shows me that you belong. So yeah, show up, be authentically you, and that will be good enough. I promise.
Yeah. One thing I think across kind of arts and entertainment that we've kind of hit on is things move really fast and in ways that aren't predictable. And I think with that in mind and being ready for however that changes, like you won't always have in graphic design, things change all the time, or like those kind of hard skills change all the time. But like if you are just building your own record of like dependability and like trust, and even if you move industries or you move positions, but like if you're showing up and being accountable, like that to me, because people recognize that stuff. And in emails, when you're having a lot of conversations over email, the names and who it's coming from kind of gets lost, but you know the people that you can trust. Even that said, if you don't know them in person, but those are relationships that matter. And I think just becoming the trusted person you want to be and be seen as is really important, and will follow you through wherever you go and whatever positions and organizations that you go to. So
I have been unceremoniously dumped, literally canned from every job I've ever had. And every time it happens, which has been a lot, I wallow. And then I think, oh, it's the end of days. I will never find another job again. And then guess what? Something better comes along. Something infinitely better comes along. So I call it getting fired up.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just letting the kids out there know that you're probably going to get let go or downsized or right-sized or whatever they want to call it. It is not the end of days. You're allowed to wallow for like a week and then start the hunt all over again, because I promise there's somebody out there who wants to hire you and somebody who deserves to have you as an employee.
Great note to end on. It's okay to be fired. We basically have all gone through that. So thank you, everyone. Panelist, great. I am kind of in this field because I am a career coach that does arts, media, and entertainment as my career community. But you all have inspired me to want to be an even greater artist. So thank you so much for being here and for all of your advice and responses. So to the crowd, please feel free to put questions if you have them in the Q&A function. There is one right now that I will read out loud, but otherwise people feel free to put it in there and I will read them. You can make it anonymous if you prefer. So first question is, do you feel it is different for humanities students graduating now versus say 15 years ago, given how AI has changed and now AI screening resumes, more jobs require specific degrees, etc. And for this portion, anyone can jump in as you feel.
I'm the only person that reviews resumes for our company. I would love an AI thing to do it, but I don't think that AI would recognize those little things that I'm looking for that a person can bring to the table by telling me their story. I would say that, my only suggestion there is get AI to write your resume at that point, if that's what's going to be talking to each other. I mean, personally, I'm looking for humans, though.
Anything you've seen kind of change, maybe from 15 years ago versus now, apart from AI?
No, realistically, everything's the same. The computer networking component of what we do specifically is new. That's about it.
Sure.
I've got a comment. Yeah, it's certainly my fear. I don't know how the algorithms work or the AI. When people apply for jobs and there are hundreds of applicants for one or two positions, I don't know who does the screening, but I have feared that it's AI and I have feared that it's an algorithm that will screen out, for example, someone who doesn't have a master's degree but has a really kick-ass museum studies certificate, for example, but that they'll get screened out and not given a shot. So I'm very very happy to hear that Andrew reads resumes, but I'm not sure how that works in museum fields where there are hundreds of applicants for very few positions.
I will say
Okay, yeah, please go.
So I will say that I own a coffee shop, so we don't get tons of applications, and we definitely don't have AI reviewing things. But some things that stand out to me when people apply for jobs, or when I was applying for jobs back in the day, are always trying to find a contact. And that is probably not going to be listed on LinkedIn, but if you do your research on wherever you're applying to and try to, personalize things, like Andrew was saying, in this world of AI, I actually think a lot of people that are hiring are really looking for that personalization, or the personal touch points with people. And I think, like, trying to tailor your experience to what the job is entailing. I know that's hard when you're applying to a bunch of jobs, but really trying to look at where you're applying to and make a personal touch point or contact with people is beneficial.
And take it from somebody who spends literally all day, every day on LinkedIn. Your LinkedIn has to be light years above everyone else's. So, and that reminds me, I'm very excited to go follow all of you on LinkedIn after this meeting. But I'm telling you right now, kids and campers, if your LinkedIn isn't on point, you're not going to get that job. So you've got to start finessing and nuancing all the things for your profile when you start putting yourself out there.
All right, thank you for those thoughts. Being considerate of time, don't see any other questions, so now is your last chance, anyone who might be rapidly typing. I'll give it like 10 seconds.
5, 4, 3.
Thank you for the countdown. Okay, seeing none, again, just want to say thank you so much, everyone, for being here, panelists especially. Any students who are planning on joining the networking event afterwards, that's on a separate Zoom, so please go find that. You should have gotten a registration link for it. And same with panelists, I've invited you, those of you who can stick after. But again, thank you, everyone, for being here. It was great to hear from these lovely panelists, and hope you have a great rest of your day.